Milos was born to a family of minority humans in Helheim, and spent most of his youth in darkness. Not the darkness of shadow, but simply because the work of the mountains and the space of his home was hewn within the mountainside. His father Serg's interests were mercantile, and his mother Katrin was a powerful person in the ore mines. He spent most of his youth inculcated in the history and tradition of the Goliath majority of the city, while his parents carved out wealth and status from their stability and effort. As a youth, he was shy and small, avoidant of trouble, thoughtful, and quiet. It meant that even though he was strong and quick for a human boy, he was often overlooked. He had only a few friends, because the human children were often envious of his family's hard-won position, and the Goliath children were disinterested in the small and quiet, favoring those of the younger set who were bold and reckless like their giant cousins. But one girl, the least of the Goliaths, was determined to get past Milos's reserve. Areni was small for a Goliath, sharp-tongued and fierce. In their teens, she needled him, trying to get him to react, undercutting him at schooling, undercutting him in front of the other children, trying to cut into pride. He took it. He had learned that bullies would find more interesting targets. But Areni was no usual bully, and when she caught him alone in the lichen-lit glow of one of the caverns in the Undercity near the entrance to the mines, she finally made Milos understand what she wanted from him. Their love affair began as a teenage drama and ended explosively. Areni was married to a Goliath named Sharsto, back to her own kind, and Milos simply cloaked loss in sharp words and pain, pining quietly behind furrowed brows. Areni went to work in the diamond mines, and Milos went to work as an apprentice to his mother, mining, hauling, and smelting. They sought ever deeper, hunting the elusive mithril veins from which true wealth would bloom. Sharsto and Areni had a son named Barrett. Their marriage was fraught with chaos and rage. It was the least well-kept secret in the city that their match was ill-fated. Sharsto wore his heart on his sleeve and wanted nothing more than to hunt great prey. Areni was full of dissatisfaction and wanted more than the miner's life that she had, without putting her finger on any of it. Their marriage ended in her widowhood. Sharsto died on the sea, hunting a monster as part of a crew. The night the news came to her by courier, Areni found Milos. Milos capitulated to her grief and made love to her that night. He still thinks it was a mistake. With Sharsto gone, Areni relied on Milos more and more to help her with Barrett and provide childcare. Milos never stopped loving her, and he grew to love her open-hearted son more than he had ever been envious of his father. The price Milos demanded for his support of her and her child was her hand in marriage, to be Barrett's stepfather for real, to be acknowledged as part of her life. At the age of 7, Barrett skipped the schoolroom, escaping to follow his human father into the ore shafts, down the complex system of elevators and pulleys. He was proud of himself for finding his father, but no sooner had he reached him than he had slipped on some loose, crumbling stone near the central mining operation and ended up suspended over a deep pit, his death yawning up at him from below. The only thing that kept him alive was Milos, suspended by his hand on the rope, holding the boy's now dislocated blue arm as he dangled, suspended what seemed forever in a moment on the verge of terror. In terror and anguish, Milos promised himself to anyone who would listen, if only he could save the boy. And in the depths of the earth, it seemed the very mountain was answering him.
I will grant you this gift that you seek on behalf of others. But each time you use it for only yourself, you will forfeit a piece of that self to me in exchange.
Milos could not, in that moment, even imagine seeking to use the power for selfishness, and he agreed on the spot. The power was his to save Barrett, and then the power was his. Areni was so furious with him for the fact that his supervision had failed and placed Barrett in danger in the first place that she would have none of it. And the idea that Milos had somehow given up part of himself to save her child, their child, just meant that he had introduced a dangerous and uncertain darkness into their lives. Tempestuous always, she told him that night that he would abandon the power he had taken up, forsake his bargain with the mountain, or he would leave her. There would be no other choice. Milos thought about using the power to save Barrett. He thought about the energy that had coursed through him in the moment of the binding. And he thought about how he had spent his whole life bargaining with his love for her for crumbs. He said goodbye to her, promised Barrett he would write, though what letters from a stepfather a 7-year-old giantkin would be interested in reading, Milos had no idea, and spent all his savings and a loan floated from his mother on passage to Farum. If anywhere could teach him to use the power for others and not for his own sake, and control the heady risk that churned his heart, the mercenary academy of the Mirrorguard must be the place to do it. Amaranth is a world in recovery. Only a century ago, the people of Amaranth were starved of divine magics, relying on their own ingenuity and the arcane to create and prosper where the gods were missing. But not all was so straightforward. Necromancy and the twisting of life by the weave has run rampant for millennia. The War of the Dead, a coup attempt by a powerful group of necromantic wizards to take over the powers in Amaranth, was only barely thwarted, and the scars of those battles still mar the landscape. Skeletons and ghouls, wraiths and walking corpses aimlessly wander, seeking sustenance or the chance to capture a new soul, attacking innocents and towns at random. For centuries the world was in strife, as all the nations fought together to defeat the threat of undeath. And they were losing. But finally, the fall happened. A great asteroid fell into the Crystal Ocean, and with it, the gods returned. Immediately, they purged the land of the walking dead, skeletons and zombies immediately destroyed, as the lost souls were restored by the patient and guiding hands of Croesus himself, or at least his avatar. And with the return of the gods, the efforts of a group of heroes known as the Wanderers, the practice of the divine magics were restored, and clerics and paladins of all faiths emerged stronger than ever before in this new age of miracles. 100 years later, as the landscape has continued its recovery, new and troubling issues arise. A tentative Cold War brews between the naval country of Tridon and the Arcanatech nation of Ceres, and the world watches with bated breath as new and more dangerous threats arise. But our story does not look to these countries, or even their problems. In a world filled with stories, Amaranth always has a tale to tell, of life and death, of heroes and villains. But not this one. Instead, this story focuses upon a young man standing just outside the gates of the Mirrorguard's fortress. Milos, from what you've heard, the Mirrorguard Academy is unusual. It could be described as a school, though what you might learn there varies so greatly that anyone declaring alumnus might be turned away from academics simply on principle. It is better described as a guild, or a fortress, a castle built centuries ago that the fishing town of Farum grew off of like an affectionate mole. There's even rumor it has recently been rebuilt. It is a guild with a reputation across all of Aurelia, where the mercenaries who fight for the Mirrorguard are told to be champions, or geniuses, or saviors, or even villains. The Mirrorguard is unusual. It's founded within the borders of Aurelia, the golden green nation of trade and mixed culture, but the Mirrorguard swears no fealty. It provides contracts to those who pay for them, with no concern for allegiance or retribution. The only constant is that if you hire Mirrorguard contractors and you do not pay for their service, they will never help you again. The Mirrorguard Academy is everything you heard it was, physically, it seems. A stout, gray stone keep is sentineled by spires. Arrow-slit windows and protected battlements remark of a history in the structures. The main keep itself appears only 2 or 3 stories in height, though it appears wider than you can tell from here. Trees and archery butts block your view after a ways, and to the sides of a stone path ahead you see the grounds of the academy are well kept. Flat stretches of grass that appear tended to, either by careful hands or by the horses you hear chuffing and pacing within a large stable to your right. Short fences and paddocks weave between high trees and boulders throughout the grounds to your left, some of which showing signs of wear or practice. Banners of the Marigard hung from high spires flap lazily in the breeze, the sunlight dancing across the crimson fabric. The spires bastion the keep at all corners, and they reach high above the walls with large windows. Within some, you see flashes of light. Your ears fill with the symphony of effort. The sounds of clashing blades and shouted commands echo from the training yards. Resounding thunder and staccato thumps accompany smoke that rises from the keep, and you witness lights dropping from skies in places that don't make sense to you. It is your story, Milos. What do you do?
So there's sun shining on the banners. What time of day is it? Because I'm figuring.
It is
fresh
11
off
in
the
the
docks.
morning.
Okay. I guess I will walk up towards the front.
Okay.
Trying not to try not to be too overwhelmed by just the vast difference of Ferrum versus home.
Sure.
Because since I lived underground for most of my life, and then I was on a boat for a long time.
Yes, it's been about a 3-week journey.
Yeah. And
You've had a lot of sun lately.
And it was quite an adventure, since he'd never... I mean, he might have been on a boat before, but he certainly never had been on a long sea voyage since he... Yeah, so...
Of course.
So just sort of spinning around in a circle, looking around him, looking at all the stuff, hearing all of the noise, busy place, and kind of moseying.
Yeah. He takes in that behind him, the large stable seems to house multiple horses. There is a cart that stands outside the stable. It looks like it is untended at the moment, but the building itself looks very busy and like it has been well used. To the left of it, you see there is another larger building. It's not visible from when you were within the gates, but now that you're standing near the front door, you see there is a stone structure, little more than... It's probably not a house, especially since you see that there is a awning over what looks like a blacksmith shop. And the sounds of work can be heard even from here.
That's a little more familiar. I'm just going to keep on heading inward, since I don't know that wandering into the smelters is really going to get me where I need to go, but it is vaguely reassuring anyway.
Okay. Do you go in?
Yeah.
Okay. As you open the broad double doors that are the front of the Marigard Academy, you are led into a room that's much less well lit than the outside is. It's much more dim in here, which is probably comforting to your character. The portraits along the walls that you immediately take in are full of a variety of people. Each of them is well larger than most portraits you would have seen anywhere but a noble's house. Each portrait is easily 3 feet across. And one that stands out to you... I'm sorry?
That's a big painting. That's it. That's all I said.
Sorry. Okay. If you said that in character...
I did.
You would have heard, coming from the desk that's across the room from you, well over 20 feet away, a dwarf kind of looks up at you, and he says, "Hey, there's many of them. Can I help? I'll help you in a moment. Let me finish what I'm doing here." And this dwarf is older looking. His hair is dark brown that's spattered with gray, and his beard is pulled in tight with all sorts of beads, bone ones, steel ones, silver ones. He seems well dressed and formal for a dwarf as he sits at this large desk.
Milos kind of self-consciously adjusts his travel cloak and tugs at his sleeves to just make sure that they go all the way down to his wrists. Goes back to looking at the paintings.
Okay. The first one he notices, which is probably the biggest one near the front door, is that of a Goliath. One that would be, the sort of thing that you would be used to seeing. But this Goliath's tattoos, you recognize them as the marks of someone who strove to be a master at arms. But the Goliath in the image has a weird, kind of cocky, sidelong smile. Beneath it says, Illarad of the Mountain. Fighter instructor.
Of the mountain, eh? Me too, I guess. Alright, now I'm talking to paintings.
That's her. I'm ready for you, by the way. How can I help you?
Sorry about that. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Milos Orthandri. This is awkward. I don't actually know how to do this, but I guess I'm here to sign up.
Oh, you're here to enroll.
Right.
Right. You have the 100 gold fee, right?
I do.
All right, fantastic. You're not going to give it to me.
Oh.
First, and the dwarf turns a large ledger around and pushes it toward you, and he says, the name's Persh. What you're going to do is you're going to sign your name here, and that you intend to enroll.
Right.
Once you've done that, you're going to go to the side room. You're going to see a sign on the door that says Selections. You're going to go in there, and you're going to choose your course of training for the year.
How do I know what my course of training is?
You're truly a fresh one then. All right.
I guess I'm fresh. I'm not sure, but I know what I am, kind of, but I don't know I don't know.
Right. That's fine. I've dealt with all sorts before. Are you looking for martial? Are you looking to be the sort that would fight with his sword and shield, or are you a magic sort?
Magic sword. I didn't used to be. But I have power now that I didn't have before.
Right, and did you come across this naturally? Did it suddenly appear, or was it the sort that was given to you?
I made a deal for it.
Right. One moment. And Persh leans down and picks up a wooden box that he sets on the counter and pulls a large blue crystal from it, and he says, Elise, if you wouldn't mind coming down, we happen to have a recruit who sounds like he's right up your alley. Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm sure. He said he made a bargain. Right. Okay. So he kind of puts the blue crystal back on the box, and he says, right, so what you're going to do is you're going to go in the selections room, and you're going to sign up for the Warlock set of training.
Oh, all right.
Does that sound fair to you?
Sir, you know more than I do. So I'm just gonna take your word for it, and I'm gonna sign up right here. And he signs his name.
Perfect.
He's got a really big M, like flourishy M, and then the rest of it is kind of an indecipherable scribble.
Right, official. Then, once you're in that room, you'll be talking with Maxwell. He'll help you out, and he will show you around the premises once you have paid your tuition and taken your equipment.
Thank you, sir.
No problem. And he gestures again to your right.
Milos sidles over to the door to the selections place, and he opens it.
Okay. The first thing Milos noticed is on the far side of the room there is a massive table that is absolutely laden with equipment. At first it's almost overwhelming and it seems like a mess.
There's so much.
But at a closer inspection, Milos would notice that the equipment is divided into sections with a small plaque beneath each section. And then the next thing we notice is
Right.
the man's voice next to him saying, "Well, good morning."
Yeah. Hi.
Hey,
Fuck.
everybody reacts like that. I don't mean to be that sneaky. And you see there
Sorry,
is
I was distracted. There was all of the stuff. There's so much stuff. I'm
right.
sorry.
It's fine. And you see this man has black hair, and is wearing what looks like very dark leathers, but his feet are kicked up on a pedestal, and he has a book in his hands. And he says, "You're a new recruit, then?"
Y- yes, I'm a new recruit. I guess I'm a warlock recruit.
Yep, that general air of confusion is what I get a lot from your lot. First things first, and he pulls open the book that he was holding, and he holds it out to you, and he says, "Just sign your name and the course of training that you're going to be taking."
All right. And Milos does that.
Right, then, tuition. You happen to have the 100 gold fee?
Milos pulls out a leather pouch that is sealed, contains 10 platinum from his mother.
Right, perfect.
And he just like it was separated so that he wouldn't accidentally spend it or get like confused. Um,
Maxwell, this very dark clad leather individual takes it from you, and he says, "Right, then you're going to be looking at the table in front of you, and you're going to select the warlike equipment. Take what seems to fit you properly, and don't miss anything, as you won't be getting a replacement unless you absolutely need it."
all right. Milos is a little confused. Like this is all a lot for him, right? So he's just kind of like, all right.
Sure.
He goes up to the he goes up to the table and he looks over the plaques until he finds the warlock section.
Right. And this is where you would choose what your starting equipment was.
Okay.
So you you have all of it. You gather
I
it all.
gather up my starting equipment.
You notice that the armor, the backpack, and the satchel, anything that has a strap, is all very modestly but ornately decorated with red and gold filigree, which is the basic colors of the Mirrorguard Academy.
Fancy. Whoops, I just punched my microphone. But that was great for
Don't do
sound
that.
quality.
No, it didn't come through, so you're good.
Okay, good. So Milos just starts gearing up because he's like, well, I've got gear now. I guess I'll figure it out, put some of it on. Not really sure what I'm doing, but I can figure this out.
You, Maxwell, like, watches as you get yourself kitted up, and he says, "You know, you happen to speak with yourself quite a bit."
I guess. Spend a lot of time by myself.
That's fair. That's fair. I've known a few like that. Typically they were dwarves, so I'm just surprised, I suppose.
Oh, well, that's funny. I was in the mines, down in the dark, so I guess there's some commonality there.
It must be a straight line. Anyway, name's Maxwell. Maxwell White, and I happen to be the rogue instructor, is when I'm not doing this.
Milos Arthrandi, and he just sort of puts out his hand.
Maxwell would shake it. And as he sets the book down on the pedestal, he kind of looks you over. And what does Milos look like?
Milos is tall for a human, although he's not used to thinking of himself as tall because he's surrounded by Goliath. But he's a big dude. He's got broad shoulders, sturdy, sort of central core, thick black curls on the top of his head, kind of a neat beard. He's early 30s, got a little bit of life under his belt. Thick eyebrows. He often has a little furrow pinched between, because he is either confused or thinking. Very, very. He's a pale. Although less so right now because he's been on a shipboard, but he's sort of more naturally pale. So right now he's probably has progressed from pale to sunburned to tan as fair folks often do. That's about
He
where
likely
he's
has
at.
a heck of a farmer's tan.
Yeah.
Maxwell would kind of smile pleasantly and say, I think you'll fit right in. Try not to be intimidated by the warlock instructor. She happens to be a bit of a, well, she's unusual. I'll say that. Anyway, follow me. I'll show you around.
I am curious what usual means here. Everything has been unusual to me, but thank you for the warning.
Maxwell will, like, place a hand on your shoulder, and he will say, trust me, mate. Anything you thought you knew, just let it go. It'll be a lot easier if you're starting from scratch.
All right, I know nothing.
Perfect.
Got it.
It takes some balls to admit it. And Maxwell will open the door. Out you go.
Milos does laugh a little, but he goes through the door.
Maxwell will follow you, and he will gesture and say, to your right, there happens to be the fighter, the barbarian, and the wizard's tower. If you happen to need anything created, that's also where you'll find the artificer's instruction. But that's not where we're going. We're going to the left here.
All right.
As he heads out into the main hall where you first spoke with Persh, he gestures to the right where you can see there are these openings in the wall behind where Persh was sitting. And he says, through there you'll find the mess hall. Meals are served 7 a.m., 1 p.m., 7 p.m. You can have whatever you like. It's covered with your tuition. They also usually have, like, stew and bread out all day. So if you're hungry, stop by, get yourself something to eat.
It's just always food?
Aye. Yep.
Wow. All right.
There's not. It's golems cooking it, so it's not anything spectacular, but it's better than nothing, and it'll fill you. So, better than having an empty stomach.
I was never much of a cook.
Me neither. And he keeps on going. And as he walks by Persh, he says, this here's our lovely concierge. And Persh says, any work you happen to have? Any free agencies you're going on? Any those sorts of missions? Especially once you're an enlisted contractor, you'll be taken from Persh. He will be handling your pay and anything else that happens to happen. So, he's your man. And he kind of pats Persh on the shoulder, who is back to his noses in papers, and he's writing many things.
Sounds like a good man to be on the right side of.
You have no idea how true that is.
My mother sort of ran the mining operation, so the administrative, she didn't own it, but she ran it, so I kind of get it.
And Persh looks at you and says, then you know how kind it is not to be disturbed.
Sorry, sir.
And he goes back to writing. And Maxwell says, hey, don't let it get to you. All right, this way. And he leads on the way. And he shows you where the paladin, the cleric, the sorcerer, most of the other classes are, until he arrives at a door that is black with this very finely inlaid paler wood paisley that runs all around the edges. And he says, this will be your classroom. I'm going to hang out here until you're all done with meeting your new instructor, so I can show you to your dorm.
Well, thank you for your time. Thank you.
This is my job.
Well, all right.
He waits for you to open the door.
All right. Unusual. See what happens. And Milos opens the door.
Milos is looking into a room that looks like someone's living room or den or musical room. It's pretty big. And based on the proximity of the door that's immediately next to it, this doesn't make any sense to you that this room is where it is. But you're looking in, and stepping down the stairs, you see there is a drow woman who is slowly walking, and when you enter, she smiles, and you can mouse over this image to see what it is that she looks like. Specifically, though, she's wearing long black clothes and a veil almost that's only pulled apart around her face. And as you enter, she's looking at you and she says, Ah, you must be our newest recruit. It is a pleasure. And Maxwell just kind of nudges you in.
Milos sort of carefully crosses the threshold, and he kind of stands there for a moment, looking awkward, and then he says, uh, yes, I guess I am. Milos Orthranti.
Elise. And
Elise.
it's a pleasure to meet you. Dag, if you wouldn't mind. And when she says that, you notice there is another student in the room. On the far side of the room, a woman with short, very dark hair and very pale skin, almost to the point where it's ghoulish, even. She looks up at you and Elise, and she just nods, and she proceeds out of the room. And Elise says, I prefer the meetings with new recruits to be in private, as there's usually some confusion and misunderstanding going on, especially with new patronees.
Well, I can promise you at least some confusion.
Perfect.
But I will try my best to learn.
She gestures for you to follow her, and she says, that is exactly what I was hoping for, because I intend to teach you.
Yes, milady?
Just Elise.
Elise.
Yes, we are equals here. Have a seat. And she will sit down on the far red chair opposite you, as she's gestured to the closer one.
Milos sits down as indicated. He kind of is trying to take her at her word that there's equality here, but he's sitting very straight and his hands are kind of clasping in his lap, like his body is not believing that there are equals here. He is feeling out of his depth already. And she
leans forward and she gently pushes on your chest to press you back into the chair, and she says,
all right.
Really, just relax. I'm not going to bite you.
Right. No biting.
We will get to courtly graces when it's important, as it will be. But first, I must know more about you, and who you are, and what you've been through.
Well, I'm definitely not very courtly.
We will change that.
Oh, God. All right.
Trust me, it's for the best. Now, Mr. Halpers told me that you had made a bargain.
Yes.
Can you please describe to me the nature of your bargain?
Well, I think it was with the mountain.
A mountain?
All right. I was deep in the mines where I worked. I apprenticed there, and then I worked there for years. It's home territory, kind of. But my stepson, he was about to fall, and I had to save him. He was falling, and I grabbed him, but I could feel that I was going to fall. I wasn't going to be able to get him, and I felt like I was reaching out with everything that I was, and something answered me, and it said that it could give me power, and if I used it to help others, that I could just have it, and if I used it for me, that it would extract a price out of my me.
Extraordinary.
Is it?
It is. Most bargains are of the sort where a patron, which is the entity that you've made a bargain with, typically, they play what I like to call the long game, where they invest in you power magic abilities in order to cash in on that much later down the line, once you have earned their trust and shown that you are of sound mind and decision-making. In order for a patron to put this cost on it, and it's such an unselfish cost, that's unusual, and it smells of almost archaic magic, of old magic, of the abilities one might have had thousands of years ago, according to the history books. The sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Compromise between the caster and the world around them. So unusual. Not a bad one, I would say. Do you know what this cost is?
Well, I've been afraid to reach for the power since then. I wanted to learn what I was doing and not accidentally spend myself, because it said it was spend myself, and I don't know how much self I have.
That's
I thought it.
Go on.
I just thought that if I went to someone who could teach me, I don't know. That's all.
Well, I will promise you this. You have come to the right place. I have helped and dealt with countless other individuals that have dealt with bargains and trades that they didn't understand, or that the terms were a little questionable.
But not like mine?
No, not like this. Most have taken up a deal with a devil, in which case the wordings are very specific, and if you cross them, they delight in taking whatever it is that they want. But in this case, it seems more open-ended, open to interpretation. I have a solution for you, and it's a first step that every new student must take. The question is, are you willing to do it? And the first step is, you must meet with your patron on their turf.
I just got here. I don't...
Oh, you won't...
I should go all the way back
No.
home?
Your patron, as with all other patrons, tell me, do you know much about the planes? And are you proficient in Arcana?
I am not.
Okay, so you don't
Milos
know anything.
Milos is like, well, I grew up in the mountains.
Okay.
But planes are
Nope,
the opposite of that?
I see, right. Our world exists in parallel with many other planes of existence, and it's not the planes you're thinking of. It's as if mirrors of our world, but slightly different. Some of them are drastically different, and many of these patrons look into our world through their warlocks and use them for whatever their purposes are. And some of them allow their warlocks to do as they please. Some of them control them with an iron fist. It sounds to me as though your patron would like to use you as an outlet for that to see the rest of the world. But not for nefarious deeds. Specifically, not in your self-interest, but in the aid of others, which is remarkable. So, we are going to send your spirit to take a look into your patron's world and speak with them, see who they are, what it is they want of you.
So me, but not me.
Correct. You will be sitting here across from me, but your perceptions will be elsewhere.
Like dreaming.
Exactly like dreaming. Perfect.
All right. This is weird.
Yes.
But I know nothing, so...
Maxwell told you that, I'm sure.
He did, but he was right. I mean, I don't know much. I know about before coming here, before getting on that boat, I knew very little about anything that wasn't underground and within 20 miles of home. So all of it's going to be new to me.
Well, my friend, before anything else, I want you to remember that I have you for a year. And during that year, you're going to learn an awful lot about a lot of things you don't understand. But we'll remedy that.
All right.
And Elise turns and opens up the drawer of the armoire right next to her. And from it, she withdraws a small incense stick.
Milos is kind of scratching at the back of his head, like, what am I getting into? Like,
She sets the incense down on the table, and with a flick of her fingers, a small flame ignites on the tip of her fingers, and she holds it out to the incense. And she says, "You will inhale the smoke of this incense, and then you will relax and allow the magic to take hold.
I will try to relax.
I imagine it will be difficult, but just trust me. You've paid me to help you, and I will help you."
Relaxing was never really my strong.
You don't really have to relax, but you might hurt your neck if you come out of the vision all tense.
That's a fair point. I like having a neck that, doesn't crack. We'll try. I'll try.
And she pushes the incense toward you. A thin plume of just slightly magenta smoke trails off of it.
Milos kind of leans forward and goes, and tries to breathe it in. Tries not to sneeze or cough.
It smells sweet. It smells of raspberries. It smells of sand. And as you're breathing it, she says, "Now I want you to try and remember that feeling of when that bargain was struck, of the emotions you felt. Remember it."
Milos tries to focus inward, thinking about... the first thing that he thinks about is the feel of Barrett's weight just like in his hand and the terror that he was about to slip.
As you think on it, I'd like you to roll me a charisma plus proficiency check, a spellcasting check, please.
Okay, spell casting.
You have advantage on this, I should say, as the incense is helping you.
Okay, advantage. Okay, come on. Just let me roll a spellcasting check. Why are you like this? Whatever. I'm not actually doing an Eldritch Blast. I'm just using it because that's a spellcasting.
Sure.
Okay, 15.
A 15. Okay. Yes. As you focus on this memory, you feel like you're suddenly in a different place. The air is a little thicker and grittier, almost as if you're breathing like you're back in the mine. Or at least you're underground, is what the air feels like. And when you open your eyes, which were closed, and you didn't even realize they were closed until just now, as you open your eyes, you see a place that is hard to comprehend at first. It is stone everywhere. Earth and rock shifts through the air around you in all directions. Mountains are in every way you can see, up, down, left, and right, and you are standing on a plain of stone. Distant sounds of massive floating islands colliding together, echoing across the landscape. Everything feels heavy and slow and unusual, alien to you. There is a familiarity in the lifetime you've spent beneath the mountain, but it is everywhere, as if that mine had expanded to take up the sky. You realize as you're looking around, the nearest mountain is moving. And then you realize it's not a mountain. A enormous stone entity. The mountain itself, what you thought was a mountain, turns out it is the spine of an enormous tortoise shell. So large that it fills your immediate horizon. And a huge stone turtle's face suddenly appears in your vision, directly in front of you. It couldn't be more than 20 feet away.
I feel so small.
The huge, clearly gray and brown and granite eye of the turtle takes you in, and you hear,
I see you have come to visit.
Yes. Thank you for saving my son.
A life is valuable. A death is worthless. Your life has only just begun.
his voice echoes across the landscape, as if he is truly speaking. It's not only in your mind, and the sound seems to just resound through your chest. It is so loud.
Why me?
There is a brief pause, but you imagine it is not the entity trying to think up the answer. It is simply time moves differently for it.
Your heart resonates with the mountain. The stone of your soul fits here.
Oh. Milos is not physically there, but he feels his lips are just parted with wonder, and he's looking up into this turtle face. And he feels like he's never heard anything that was so right in his life. And all he can think to say is, oh.
The giant stone turtle looks at you, and it says,
You have come thousands of miles. For answers one needs ask only yourself. For I am always listening.
Well, that does sound like something I do.
The stone does not move for itself.
No, I guess it doesn't. I guess it would just, well, when a force acts upon it.
understand.
I actually, maybe I really do.
Grow, Milos of the Rock Heart. Grow, learn. I will be waiting.
I will.
Do you say anything else?
Milos has no more words.
After a brief pause, the form of the tortoise turns, and it is almost, you get the feeling of this must be what a continent moving looks like, as this titan turns away from you. And as it does, the sound of the stone scraping the creature that is this primordial entity moving across the world of its own plane. The sound almost shakes you out of a reverie. And as it does, you blink, and you're looking in Lisa's classroom, and she is seated across from you, looking at you. And she says, "Oh, you're back."
So big. Like, just so huge, enormous.
I'm not... Your patron's big.
Unimaginably large. And, I mean, not, he's not, oh, all right, he's not actually the mountain. He was so big, though. Like, picture a tortoise, except it's the size of a country. He was just so big.
You see Elise's like... Now you catch it. You didn't see it immediately, but she is scribbling notes. And she says, "Very large tortoise, okay. And what did he tell you? What did you ask him?
I asked...
What did you tell him?"
What did I ask? I asked why me. Said I resonated with a mountain. He said I'm Milos of the Rock Heart. And he asked me to grow. And I said I would. I think that's what I think. Oh, I thanked him for saving my son. I never did before. It felt so important. When I saw his face, I wanted to say thank you.
Well, she's like, stops making a note, and she says, "One thing you will find is that your patron has a unique insight on your emotions. So the gratitude is known by your patron."
Well,
did he give you, did it give you a name?
gave me a name for me. I forgot to ask. It almost seemed like it was beyond names. It was like a natural force, but also a tortoise.
Huh.
It was just so big.
Could you maybe describe it a little better for me? I'm drawing a blank here.
So I was in a place
Uh-huh.
that was it was mountains, and but it wasn't mountains. It was all mountains. It was conceptually mountains, and there were mountains above, and to the sides, and beneath.
Above?
And
Were you underground?
not exactly.
Elise, like, thinks for a
Well,
moment.
I was. The air tasted underground.
Right. So there's a few. Okay. Your patron, not the Underdark. Doesn't sound like the Underdark. Was it well lit? Could you see clearly? You're human, obviously.
I could see. He was a big tortoise.
Okay.
And I could hear him move, and it was like the thunder of stone. Like when you're moving like really big rock, and it has that kind of cracking sound.
Right.
I could hear the grind of stone when he was moving.
So everything was stone.
Yes.
I believe, at a first guess, that you were likely on the elemental plane of Earth, the elemental plane of stone, which is alarming, as I've never heard of a patron whose home was one of the elemental planes. So your patron was very powerful, I will say that.
He was... I think he's very old.
I think I need to do some research on your behalf.
Oh. All right. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. This is just unusual, to say the least. There is no telling what will drive a patron to take an interest in a mortal. For an elemental entity, that's a new one. Haven't had that one before. It's certainly interesting.
Milos is kind of rubbing his face, like, oh god, I'm so weird.
Elise will reach out and gently touch Milos on the upper arm and say, "Trust me, magic is unknown to all but Magos himself. The reasons for this patron to reach out to you, the reasons for you to resonate with him, all of those things don't matter. What does matter in the end is you're in this situation now, and you will grow, as he said."
Yes. Yes, I will.
We will sort
I've
out...
got to. I'm so small right now.
So small. Is this a literal thing? You're very tall, actually.
No, I mean, I was just next to this tortoise that was so big. I've never felt so small in my life, and I was always surrounded by big people.
I see.
Sorry.
No worries. There's nothing to be sorry for.
My brain is just... like there's a giant fucking tortoise in it.
Can you, now that you have spoke with your patron, can you reach out to him? Can you try and speak with him?
He said he's always listening. What should I say?
Anything, really. If he's listening to you, just give it a pitch.
All right. Milos kind of takes a deep breath, holds it for a second, closes his eyes, and goes, "What should I call you?"
There is a long pause, similar to when you were having a conversation. Just as if the entity is winding up to speak. But you hear,
I have been known by many as Dynas.
Dynas. All right. Does the name Dynas mean anything to you?
she blinks, and I'm going to roll a history check. You watch as she looks toward the book, the shelves that are next to her, and she takes down an old book and begins shuffling through it. And she says,
Dinaz. I feel like I have heard that name before.
And it takes a moment, and you're waiting there for a couple minutes as she shuffles, and then she says,
Well, that does explain, the size. In Mythos, Dinaz was a Xanatar, an Earth Titan.
All right.
A primordial, an old entity from before magic was really common. At least that's what the stories say.
When you said old magic, you really old.
Yes, like the forming of our world old. Primordial.
Fuck.
Primordial is the word.
Ha.
What a remarkable patron.
and she's like reading through it.
I think I've heard of individuals who were taken by a phoenix as their patron.
That's a bird, right?
It's a fire primordial. It's a fire titan.
Oh.
It is also a bird, yes, it takes the form of a bird. Usually, these primordial entities take on the form that fits their personality. So, a Xanatar is a stone tortoise.
That's amazing.
Well, now that we know your origins, we have an idea as to where your magic comes from and the sort of nature it will be, which is likely primordial, very elemental, likely chaotic, and likely very potent. So, the gifts that you will receive from a patron of this caliber, I'd be careful with them, as they might be potent. That being said, you definitely don't seem the sort to waste their potential.
I hope not.
The good news is, the rest of the day, now that you've met me and we've dealt with learning who your patron is, the rest of the day is yours. You can speak with Maxwell once more. I'm sure he's waiting outside the door to find your dormitory.
He did mention that he was going to do that. I thought it was Well, yes, he did. He said he was going to do that.
Once you have your dormitory, you are free to explore the grounds as you wish, or explore the town of Ferrum, familiarize yourself with the local area. But tomorrow, I expect to see you here, 8 a.m.
How many hours past dawn is that?
It's about 2 hours.
Oh, no problem.
I imagine you'll want to get yourself something to eat. But once you're here tomorrow, we will get down to business, as it were, and start teaching you the tricks of being a warlock, particularly one for the Marigard Academy.
And I'm not... But learning, I'm not going to be spending... I don't want to spend...
No. You won't be... Okay, I see what you're asking. We'll not be having any... You're not going to be in any danger. You're not going to be using your magic just for nonsense.
All right.
Your patron has instructed you to grow. And should your patron instruct you to grow without practice, that doesn't really make sense.
No, that's true. I just...
I suspect, based on the wording that you told me the original bargain, if you perform
any of your abilities with a true selfish desire, it will likely cost you.
But it's not selfish to want to not accidentally blow a hole in the building or whatever.
Exactly.
All right.
You're doing this for everyone else's best interest, aren't you?
I hope so, yes.
Let me tell you, with the potential that I can see just from your patron alone, yes, you harnessing this is in everyone's best interest.
All right. Thank you, Elise.
You are welcome, Milos. And it's been a pleasure. When you exit, will you please inform Dag that she may return?
Of course. Yes. And Milos stands up, straightens out his travel clothes again, and his new gear. Yeah. Right. Right. And he goes back to the door.
Okay. As you open the door, Elise just says over your shoulder, "And make sure you have a pleasant evening. Don't over-worry yourself."
Thank you.
You see out in the hall, Maxwell is leaning against the opposite wall, and next to him is the pale, almost gray-skinned woman with short hair, she's kind of quietly standing there, and when you emerge, Maxwell says,
Right. Are you all finished then?
Yes. Elise says that, Dag, is it, you can go back in.
she looks at you and she says, "Dog, and thank you." And she,
Dog?
"Dog."
Dog. Sorry.
She kind of tips her head and goes through the door.
I should probably have said Milos. But I didn't. That's gonna bother me. Alright, okay, Maxwell, she said you were gonna find me a dorm room.
Right.
Yes? Alright.
Follow me.
And he leads the way up the hallway a ways, and then you are shown to a series of, like a door that leads into a round room with a series of doors. He says,
Right now, I believe Dog is the only other Warlock student, so go ahead and pick a room.
and he kind of gestures to the door, like there's 5 doors in front of you, and he clearly stands in front of the one that is likely taken.
Oh, alright. I'll just pick one.
He takes a key out of his pocket as you do, and he hands it to you.
Thanks.
No problem. Now, before I set you off, as you have the rest of the day to yourself, is there anything you'd like to ask me before I wander back to the selections room?
Is there, Is there a post office?
There's a courier, and there's a messaging
Right.
service, if that's what
Right.
you need.
Promised I'd write home.
It'll be on the main stretch. When you head out of the Merry-God, you go out to the main street on Ferrum, and you'll see Posts and Parcels. It's 2 blocks down the road. You can't miss it.
Alright, thanks.
Well,
I'm a
best of
little
luck to you.
Sorry, I'm a bit boggled. I'm sure I'll figure out a question later, but right now I've just got a head full of rocks. So, thanks, and I'll figure it out.
Welcome.
And Maxwell kind of tips his head to you and leaves. The key that you've been provided does open the door that you've selected. Inside it, you will see that there are 2 beds, each with a foot locker just at the foot of the bed, and then a small, like, end table, basically. It looks like you could fit everything that you own in this trunk, though. It is pretty big.
And I don't actually own that much.
Sure.
So between those things, Milos basically gets himself situated in the room in, like, 5 minutes, and then he goes,
Yeah.
right, I guess I'll get something to eat. Fuck. And then he just goes to make his way back through the heap back to where the dining hall is.
Okay. When you head into the dining hall, there's a few students in here. Would Milos try and find someone to talk to, or would Milos be like trying to isolate himself?
Milos has often been fairly reserved and private, but he's also completely isolated already because he's in a completely new place. So I do think that he would scan the room and see if there's anybody who looks open to socializing.
Okay. Yeah. Why don't you roll me a perception? And also roll me a d8. Let's see who you find.
Okay. So perception. And then D8.
A 3. Oh, okay. Yeah. No problem. As you go up to... It's actually just hit lunchtime, basically. As you go into the mess hall. And lunch today, it appears to be, is a assortment of what looks like... They're not steaks. They must be some sort of meatloaf-like thing. And then all sorts of vegetables and potatoes with it. So you grab yourself some food from the counter, and you see beyond the counter are a number of golems that are operating the kitchen. There are 4 golems that are currently, like, dishing up plates of food and setting them on the counter. They don't seem to pay you any attention.
Yeah, Maxwell mentioned those. What do they look like they're made of?
Metal.
Okay.
They almost look like suits of armor at first. And as you're looking at it...
Do they wear aprons and chef's hats?
Yes.
Awesome.
Of course they do. For they are the cooks. And when you turn around to try and take in the sights of the mess hall, there is a young woman who is blue of skin, which immediately reminds you of home. But she's much, much shorter than you. Why don't you roll me... Are you proficient in nature?
Am I? No.
Okay, roll me a nature.
Okay.
Basically, just roll me an intelligence check.
Okay. Roll an int.
Yeah. To see if you recognize... A 12. This person is unusual to you. You're unfamiliar with whatever their deal is. You don't know. She has white hair and very pale blue skin, but it's more sky blue than any of the glass you grew up with. She's also much shorter than you. Not halfling short, but just over 5 feet tall.
Yeah, so she's like a
normal
foot.
sized person.
Like a foot shorter than Milos. Okay.
Yeah. She is seated on the bench of one of the long tables, and she has turned around and looked at you. And she says, "You're new, aren't you?"
Yeah. Yes. Sorry, I am. Milos, hi.
There's nothing to be sorry for.
I didn't mean to be rude. I was.
Why don't you come
Hi.
out? Why don't you come have a seat?
I will do that. Thank you. Milos comes over and he puts his food down in front of him and he kind of sits down. He's like, right. Milos Orthandri just got here. And he holds out his hand.
She takes it, and with a smile, she says, "Economist! And I've been here for a minute, but not that long." And you can see what she looks like if you mouse over this token. She is all bright smiles as she looks at you, and she says, "You look like you've come quite a ways, and you're still lost."
Well, that's one way of putting it. Um, yes, from Trident, you know,
Oh,
long
across the
trip.
pond.
But I think I'm in the right place.
I think you are too. After all, I think I've got you beat. I'm from Zephyr.
That's far. You're right.
I'm usually am.
Kinda missed. So what are you studying here? Or is that the right word? What
I,
are you training to be?
I'm a sorcerer.
Oh,
Magic at my fingertips, pissing off all the wizards. It's my favorite trick in the book.
I guess I could piss off a wizard.
Don't do that.
I'm a
It's too
uh,
easy.
just signed up. I'm a warlock.
Oh, someone big and powerful's got you in their bed, have they? That's always interesting.
I don't think he's got a bed.
Hmm?
I mean, there.
I'm surprised, to be honest. With a stature like yours, I'd think you'd be signing up with Illerad, being a fighter.
Huh. I saw his painting in the front hall.
That's the biggest
Yeah.
one. He's a cheeky fucker.
He looks it. Reminds me of someone I used to know. But no, I already had the warlock thing before I got here, so it was just a sort of a question of figuring out how to do the warlock thing without,
Ah.
blowing up anything.
Well, that's for
Like
the best.
myself.
That's for the best. Don't blow yourself up. That's
Right.
That's there's a lot of sorcerers that could do with that same lesson.
Yeah, that's innate, right? That's the kind of magic where you just have it.
Yep. And sometimes you don't know it until you've accidentally blown your brother off of a wall. So then you
Ooh.
have to go find out what happened to him.
Ooh, so you don't know if he's all right.
Oh, he's fine.
Oh,
Just a bit of a bonk on the head.
oh, that's good.
When a sudden surge of wind appears out of your hands, you don't necessarily know how to make it not come out of your hands until you've thought about it real hard for a long moment.
Ah, yeah, I can imagine. I have never commanded wind in quite that way.
Aye, just the same as everyone else, I'm sure.
Right. Ah,
So you're from Trident.
yes.
How'd you hear about the Marigard? The same as the rest of us, I'm sure.
Well, my father was a merchant. Well, he still is a merchant. My father is a merchant, and he's spent a lot over the years on trade over the seas, and they've had to hire mercs, from time to time, and he knew that the Marigard was the best. And when this happened to me, uh, he said that if there was anyone on the planet who could teach me that we could afford, it would be here. Because it's not cheap. The 100 gold, obviously, it's not cheap, but it was manageable. And we knew where to go, so we made it happen.
That's really not cheap. I spent a year blowing sails for ships just to make the wage for it.
It was everything I had and a big loan, but I had to.
But hey, if look at the bright side. If you make it, if you pass your exams, you're basically set for life.
I hope so. I mean, yeah, I will be set for life. I'm not gonna doubt this at all.
Trust me, they look after their own. I've spoken with a few of the contractors that come through. Whenever they're done with a mission, they're always loitering about, whether they're in here or they're out talking to Persh. And if you listen in, you can catch on some of the details of whatever missions they were on. And there's a lot of juicy details.
Really? What have you heard?
Well, there's been an Abishai in Augur City recently. You know what that is?
Do I know what that is?
Are you proficient in Arcana?
I am not.
No, you do not.
I have no idea what that is.
It's this gross, like, draconic devil person, and they like to hide as actual people. They were talking about it, like, it was the leader of this bank was actually an Abishai, and they had to get him to pop out into his devil form so they could prove to everyone else in the bank, look, it's a bloody devil. And then they killed it, because it's a devil.
That sounds like an extremely exciting day at the bank.
Right? So, I mean, they had to do a lot of investigation to figure out where it was, but once they found it, it was quick work, as they said. They didn't look too worse for wear, so I guess they caught it by surprise. Or maybe they're just...
They're just really good.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah. I hope to be really good.
I'm sure you will be. Elise knows what she's doing. Probably.
She seems to know a lot. She's very classy.
She's been around forever. Rumor has it she's been in the Maragard for over a century.
Well, I guess that's an elf thing.
Although I don't mean to gossip, but there's also word that she's a vampire.
Really?
Really? That's the rumor. I never asked her.
Well, I mean, how would you ask that?
Excuse me, are you a blood-sucking vampire?
Right, like... Oh.
She certainly got that enigmatic feel about her, though. I could see it.
Well, it did not even occur to me when we were talking. But I was kind of busy getting my brain turned upside down and then pulled out my ears.
It's just a rumor. I wouldn't, I just like, I have a thing for the gossip. It's my favorite thing about this place.
I like to know what people are saying, even if it doesn't turn out to be true. It can tell you a little about the world around you.
You're not wrong. It does make me curious as to what your free agency is going to be.
I don't even know what that is.
Oh, right. Okay. So it's exciting. It's basically hands-on training. So as you prove yourself in classes and such, sometimes if there's jobs that are not big enough to send a contracting team, they give it to the students to teach them. And they're called free agencies because they're the sorts of things that the Maragard do for free for the interested parties.
Do people know they're getting students, or is it
yeah, that's part of
drastic, horrible surprise? All right.
No, that's why it's free. We're not charging them, at least from what I hear. And then they get students. And usually, everything goes okay, especially since the instructors usually keep a very close eye on the free agencies. And whenever there's anything questionable, usually my instructor will teleport in, grab the students, and teleport out, especially if, like, say, if Persh is lied to and it's actually much more dangerous.
Makes sense.
But, there's always people making mistakes, and then you bring on the ire of the Maragard Academy, which I wouldn't wish on anyone.
No. This seems like a hell of an organization to piss off.
The wizard instructor's a dragon. You don't fuck with a dragon.
No. That I didn't know that.
Well, you might have to go to his classroom if you need particular research materials, and when that happens, you'll meet him. He's a big, bloody brass gentleman. He's actually very nice, but it's still a dragon.
I've never even seen a dragon. I mean, I've seen Dragonborn. It's not the same at all.
No, it's not the same. He's huge.
Wow.
Be careful though; he'll talk your ear off.
Oh.
You think I'm kidding? I was stuck in there for 40 minutes.
What's he telling you about?
If you dearly want to know, he told me about a merchant caravan that had gotten lost on its way out of Selatok maybe 200 years ago, and he appeared to help them, and while he was talking to them, a blue dragon appeared, like,
was scouting the area, and he told them he described in great detail how it was that he burrowed into the mountain and led them through these tunnels, which at first it sounds like a very exciting adventure. But after 10 minutes of being told the story, and he goes into detail about the depths of the caverns and how wide the tunnels were, and being careful for weight distribution for their cart, I did not care anymore.
That is... It sounds like a very unique experience.
It certainly was, and you're welcome to go speak with him. He's always excited to hear from new people.
I think I would have to have a reason. But that is interesting to know.
She like has a mouthful of meatloaf as you're talking.
Reminded to eat, Milos starts eating the food because he's been too busy listening to Ghana to...
Right. Hold on. If you eat the food, you gain 2 temporary hit points.
Hooray!
It's pretty good.
It's delicious meatloaf.
It's not amazing, but it's pretty good. It's certainly serviceable and it's filling.
Yum.
And she says, well, since it's your first day, I feel inclined to welcome you properly. So, how about we go hit the Merry Guard?
What's that?
Oh, it's the pub right up.
Oh!
It's on the same street as this. It's just called the Merry Guard because they think it's funny.
That's cute. Yeah, sure. Why not?
Perfect.
I mean, it's a bit early, but what?
Well, I'm not right now. I get out of course and I still have to finish my own.
Right. Great. So I'll meet you there at
Dusk.
when? Dusk. I can do that.
She kind of smiles at you as she finishes eating. She says,
Right. Well, it's been a pleasure to meet you, Milos. I'm gonna head on back to sorcery, and I'll see you around.
I'll see you later.
and she picks up her plate, drops it off on the counter, and waves at you as she leaves.
Bill did not figure out what she is. All right.
There is a moment where you say that, and then you hear energetic.
Milos laughs, like, and no one could hear that, so he just looks like a weirdo just standing and laughing to himself. And then he busses his tray, and then he goes to explore the grounds. He's gonna go poke around the smelter and foundry that he saw.
Okay, yeah,
earlier.
you head near the blacksmith. Okay.
Yeah.
The blacksmith is a well-constructed building. It shows signs of recycled stone. This building looks like it has been torn down and rebuilt at least once. And as you are looking in, there is a half-orc woman who is pounding steel on an anvil. She looks up as you round the corner. I just realized every NPC you've encountered is a woman. That was, except for Persian Maxwell. Just how these things go. She looks up.
Totally random.
She looks up and she says, "Be with you one moment." And then just, purr,
All right.
purr. This is a very well outfitted blacksmith shop. It looks like work is done here and it is done quickly. And you've seen smiths work before. The hammer this woman is using is a remarkable one, and the steel that she is working on is glowing bright orange, and it is moving quickly. Every time she strikes it, it seems like she has done this a very long time. Finally, after about 30 seconds of pounding on the steel, drawing out its length, she throws it into a hot forge. She tosses the tongs down onto the anvil, kind of throws the gloves off, and looks up and says, "Hey, how can I help you?"
Good afternoon. My name is Milos. I'm new here. I'm mostly just exploring, but this is an amazing smithy.
Most of you recruits don't stop by. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. I'm Seka.
Seka, it's nice to meet you. And he goes up to her to offer his hand. Shake hands with everybody, like a good boy.
Seka brushes the soot off of her right hand and then shakes your hand with it.
Yeah.
Always good to see another.
Are you, you look like the sort to take up arms. Are you, trained in a smith?
I yes, mostly did smelting work and just little bits and bobs. We were
Oh,
deep in the mines.
You know what you're doing,
Uh,
then?
I I do. I do. At least that is. I know what I'm doing in a smelter. I know what I'm doing in a mine. I don't know that I know what I'm doing in a warlock classroom, but I guess I'll figure it out.
You see Seka look surprised, and she says, "Warlock?
Yeah.
Huh.
It kind of happened, but I'm learning. I'm gonna learn. I'm gonna go with it.
Hey, you just didn't strike me as the type, that's all. I don't mean to judge.
Don't think I don't know what the type is.
Usually the sort that can't fend for themselves that call out to some magical being to give them a handout.
Right. Yeah. Well, I never did before, but there was someone who needed help, and I couldn't do it alone. So,
I like you, Milos.
Thanks.
If you ever want some extra coin, you come help me with the smelter here.
Glad to. That, I have absolutely no idea what the schedule here is like, but, I bet I'm gonna need some extra coin sometimes, so I'd be glad to...
This is your first day, yeah?
Yeah.
Usually you'll have the evenings to yourself.
Alright. Yeah, it'll be nice to... I mean, this looks like a great place to work.
You ever worked with Mithril before?
Rarely. We didn't get a lot of veins. You have to go down real deep, and it was hard to find. And mostly, when we did get it, my mother handled it, but she showed me how. And
Well, we'll try you out. We'll see what you know.
Yeah.
Really, what I need help with is just tedious. Is melting down the old mithril armor into ingots so I can bang it into something else. That's really what I need.
I can do that. I mean, you get into the rhythm, and it's kind of like your body's just doing it.
It gets hot in there. You're comfortable with that?
Oh yeah.
I think you and we're gonna have a good relationship.
Good. That's good. Really, I was just exploring, so getting work out of it, that's awesome.
Well, you got
So
the build
thanks.
for it, so I figure, it's worth
Yeah, I mean, I did it for quite a few years,
offering. Yeah, you can kind of see it on you, so...
Yeah. Yeah.
Where are you from, anyway?
I'm from I just had sorry, out of character. I just had my backstory open and I closed it.
You're from Fidi, which is in Triton.
I'm from Phoebe. I was looking for Loten
Helheim.
Helmheim, which is more specific than I needed to be. But
Okay. Do you say
yeah.
Loten Helheim?
that is what he says, because that is what he is used to saying when people ask where he's from.
Seka's eyebrows raise, and she says,
Whoa, okay. All right. Yeah, you don't look like a Goliath, so you probably
No.
worked your ass off.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what you know, and
Sure.
we'll take use of that, because I can use all the help I can get.
Glad to.
she kind of smirks at you, and she says, "Oh,
The heat's done. You can stick
All
around
right.
if you want.
and she pulls out the ingot from the forge and begins to pound on it some more.
As she gets back to work, Milos is just gonna briefly look around the forge area and then mosey on in his explorations, because he did want to find his way to out into town,
Okay.
and look for the post office that
Yeah.
he was directed to.
I will pull up the map of Farum. Ah, yes. Farum is a quaint little town. It is very much a coastal town that is surrounded by kind of low walls. It's pleasant, period. It's a nice town. Everyone seems pretty content and the smells of baked goods and trade and the voices of people carrying always have a very upbeat rhythm to them. And as you head out toward the main street, it's not hard to catch, as you are suddenly stopped as in front of you is a very large park. People are milling about in the park, spending their time eating outdoors. And to your left and right, you see is the main stretch, which is lined with vendors, carts, people selling things, people trading for things. And all along the main stretch, there are just stores. Store after store, business after business. And sure enough, a couple blocks down, with what looks like a very almost humorously and whimsically painted image of a parcel being carried by a bird, is a sign that says Posts and Parcel.
I'm gonna take a moment and look out over the park.
Okay.
What all have we got going on in this park?
So, it's a little different. You arrived in Ferrum by boat. But you could see it on the approach, is that Ferrum is surrounded by forest. On a map, it's called the Allen Forest. And it's all deciduous, very tall trees. And it's very dense. It seems, just at a glance, even as you look over the walls, it looks untamed. The park is a lot more... It looks like there are adventurers that camp out here. There are numbers of campsites and low canvas tents that are nestled beneath very thick oak trees. But there aren't that many of them. The park is pretty open and easy to navigate. You can see most of it from here. It looks like it's maybe a couple acres in size. It seems like a pretty nice park. But the thing you notice the most is that pretty close to you, basically opposite the road the Marigold Academy is on the end of, you see that in the center of the park there is a shrine.
Do I recognize what the shrine is dedicated to?
Are you proficient in religion?
No.
Okay. Go ahead and roll me a history check.
I am proficient in that.
Okay.
Who knows why? Normal. Nope.
A 4.
That's a natural 1.
This shrine,
I don't know shit.
you have no idea. But I will describe it to you.
Okay.
The shrine itself looks like it is not a permanent shrine. It's made of wood. It looks like someone set it up and it's just kind of been here ever since they left it here. But it has a large symbol on the top. It's nestled into canvas as if stitched there. It's a flaming hammer on a white canvas.
Milos kind of looks at it for a bit, and he kind of looks around the park and the adventurers camps that are in the park, and he kind of laughs to himself and rubs at the back of his head, and he looks to the right towards the chapel district over there. Like
Sure,
the other
that's through the
temples are.
gate. That's through the gate. It's
Right.
It's not actually like a
Oh, okay.
temple district. There is a temple out there,
Okay.
but it is not a holy district. It's just
So it's
called.
not like obviously. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. He kind of goes, all right, it's interesting. And then he just turns and heads back towards the post office that was his original goal in coming out here.
Okay. Do me a favor and roll me a D100, as you have been out long enough to incur a random encounter.
A random encounter. 26.
26. Let's see what happens to you. All right. As you're walking down the street away from the park, your attention is suddenly caught by an old woman in very colorful clothes. And she has cards out in front of her. And as you walk by, she says, "Fortunes for 1 silver? Fortunes for 1 silver. You, sir, look like you could use your future foretold."
Grandmother? Do I?
You certainly do. I can see the history is plaguing you.
And the future's the cure for my history, is it?
It certainly helps to be prepared.
Yeah, all right. Why not? 1 silver?
1 silver.
What the hell? Sure.
And she holds up the deck of cards after she shuffles it with this very ornate, very, very flourishing and colorful motions. And then she holds up the deck and she says,
Draw 3, please.
Milos kind of approaches and he slides the single silver onto her. Like, does she have a table?
Yeah,
I'm imagining a
yeah.
table. Okay. Slides the silver onto her table, and he has this sort of skeptical, saturnine look on his face, but he still reaches to draw 3 cards. So he, as skeptical as he may or may not be, he's still paying and doing it. So how skeptical can he be, really? So he reaches out to pull 3 cards from the deck.
okay. As you draw the 3, she takes the deck and she tucks it underneath the table, clearly away from her hands. And she rubs her hands together and says,
Perfect. Now, let me see the first one. I don't need to touch it. I shouldn't touch it. Just place it face up on the table.
You got it.
do me a favor and roll me a D52. 32. Hold on.
Ah. I see in your future, the close, the near future, promise. I see potential gain. I see the growth of the mind, the expanding of the heart. I see bonds being created. You will grow stronger in the relationships you find. You should be careful who you trust in, but those you trust in are trustworthy.
Mm-hmm.
She kind of looks at you with one cockeyed and says,
This is real magic, you know. I don't have to.
and she still and says,
All right, turn over the next card.
Look, I'm not saying it's not real magic. I wouldn't say that.
I heard that tone in your mumble. You're not fooling me, sir.
Look, it's pretty easy to look at somebody in brand new Marigard equipment and figure out that they're at the beginning of something. That's all. That's all I meant by that little.
That's fair. I hadn't even thought of it. I've seen so many of you Marigards that I just...
Yeah, we seem to be the darlings of this place. All these shops and everything.
It's...
Economic. Yeah, that's all right. All right, I'm turning over this card, the one in the middle. All right, here we go.
okay, roll me another D52.
Okay.
Okay. Hold on.
You will be faced with a frightening choice very soon. One that could cause harm to one you care for.
Now Milos looks more serious and he kind of frowns at the card and he frowns at her.
I realize that's not the best news, but The card does not lie.
Are you sure that's not something that hasn't already happened?
She looks at the card and looks up at you, and she says,
I can't read your past any better than a book could tell me.
Damn. Huh.
You drew the card. That is
did.
what it tells me.
All right. And I guess there's the third card.
One more, yes, please.
roll me another D52. Oh, you did. It's a 40. Okay.
40.
Hold on. Oh.
That is...
She looks at you, and she kind of frowns, and she says,
Well, you've already had enough bad news for one day. Maybe...
Tell me.
Oh,
You're going to sell ugly truths. I should at least find out what they are, eh?
you will face a strife in your future. Something breaking, something of value to you, something you will lose, and you won't like it.
Grandmother, I did you a disservice. I misbelieved you at first, but now I know you're telling true.
she kind of looks at you with a lopsided grin, and she says,
It's not how I usually prefer these things to go, but it is what the cards say. But I appreciate your patronage.
Straight truth is always better than pretty lies, even if it's terrifying. He kind of bobs his eyebrows at her.
Yes, I can't really argue with you. But I wish you luck. And pay attention to that first card. That... Trust those that... Trust them. Maybe they can make the other things not terrible.
and she looks genuinely concerned for you as she collects up the 3 cards and puts them back into her deck.
Thank you for caring.
Best of luck to you.
Yeah. Kind of takes a deep breath, cracks his knuckles, nods to her very gravely.
You hear
I
her.
hope your next customer gives you some fewer worries.
Me too.
She kind of tips her head to you and then says,
Fortunes, 1 silver piece.
to the other people on the street.
Milos kind of shoves his hands in his pockets and looks up into the sky and goes, "Huh," and then just keeps walking towards the post office.
Okay. You head to the messaging surface, and it is exactly what you expect it to be. It's fairly full of people that are writing their own messages out. You see that the back end of the building is open to the open air. And most people that are heading there, you see that there's this counter with a number of people handing the service up, and they turn around, and it seems as though there's a couple ways that messages are delivered. The most common one, you see there is a man who's standing next to a griffin? That's definitely a griffin. And he's got a large bag that he's slowly sorting messages into. Next to him, you see... Whoa, sorry. Next to him, you see there are a couple... they look little more than tokens of feathers hanging from the ceiling. But you watch as one of the people at the counter touch the token with a letter in hand, and a bird appears, an eagle. And they tie the message to the eagle's claw, who then immediately flies out the back of the building. They look like animal messengers, which is a thing you're familiar with, though you probably haven't seen it very often. But as you enter, one of the counter agents look at you and say, "Hello there, how can I help you?" It's a balding human man who's clearly looking at you.
Today, I would like to send a letter.
Aye,
I need to write it.
A
How
copper,
much for?
copper for the parchment.
Excellent. And how much to send to Phoebe?
Feedy Trident, is this going to be express?
No. I mean, no.
Alright, full copper. You can expect it to get there in the next,
He looks over at an instrument on the wall that you don't understand because you're not proficient in Arcana, and he says,
it'll be there in 2 weeks.
It's not urgent. It's just a letter. So that should
Alright, so 5
Thanks.
copper total.
slide over the copper.
he hands you several stacks of parchment, an envelope, and basically a pen. And he says,
Take your time.
Thanks.
There's
Thanks.
seating over there if you need it.
And he'll head over to the seat and he'll sit down.
you hear in the background, "Next!" as other people are
Yeah.
coming in. And you write a letter. What is it that you say?
Dear Barrett, I have arrived in Ferrum and started my schooling to be one of those Marigard mercenaries you've heard so much about. I know it's been a while already, and it's going to be much longer before we can see each other again, but I promised I'd write. If you want advice from me, just take your time. Think before you speak. And don't run around in any more mine shafts. But the stone has more wisdom than I ever realized. And I hope to learn all of it. Next time I write, I'll have more stories. Love, Milos.
As you finish the letter, you hear,
The mountain crumbles without its roots.
Yes, it would. I guess it does.
do you offer the letter to the service agent?
I do.
You watch as he nods, he looks at it, and you see he like takes a small token that he runs over the side of the letter, and you can see ink appearing as if it's and you can see originating from Ferrum. And then he turns, he touches the token. This time, what looks like an albatross suddenly appears. A very large bird, and he ties it to the leg of it, and it flies out the back of the building. And he turns to you and says,
Thank you for your business.
Magic is really excellent, says Milos.
I agree.
Turns to go.
Good day.
and then you
Day,
hear
sir.
calls to the next. And as you have written that letter, and you emerge back out in Ferrum on the main street, that is where we're going to stop for today.
Yeah, I thought that was a good breaking point.
Okay. Did you have a good time?
That was great.
Good.
I love that turtle. That's so cool.
Oh, man. All right, I am stopping the
I'm
recording
excited. I'm
now.
excited. This is going to be fun.